You know,
Happy New Year, everybody.
it's
Welcome
going
to
to take.
2022. I hope your seatbelts are fastened in safely. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Is it?
You don't think so?
No, I don't know. Not really. Let me tag you on this. Uh, no, no, I don't. I really don't. I mean, at some point you got to go. You kind of stop resisting what's happening. I mean, like we've been waiting for it to happen, and it's
Yeah.
happening, and we're resisting it because it's just strange. I can't imagine what it is for a lot of people because I don't have a 3D job. I guess you could put it that way. I marvel at well, you do it. I mean, I know your work is an expression of your, of your soul. I know you're really, focused on what you do, and I remember talking to you about it one time, but still, you've got to deal with all these different people, schedules, coordination, uh, probably some motivation and some ass kicking, and you got to deal with a lot of different things. So I wonder sometimes, like, what's that like to go into that and then into this and into that and into this, and you have kids. I mean, that's wild to me.
Yes, yes. There's a lot going on, and to quickly answer your question, I pacify my emotions a lot with alcohol. So there's one thing.
Well,
So when
that's a
you
double-edged sword.
but it's those things where it's just like it can having the fullness, I guess you can say, and all these attachments. Basically what you're saying is I have a lot of attachments and you don't, right? Like for you, letting go is a lot easier
Yeah,
because you don't have certain people relying on you, I guess is
yeah,
the biggest thing. You don't have people having expectations of you, while I have lots of people that have lots of expectations of
yeah,
me that I have
yeah,
to deliver, right? So it's one of those things where it's just some days it's great because the other thing about the spiritual community is sometimes when you're in it so deep, you forget the reason you're here is you're being human. You forget the reason you're here is to dwell in the muckiness of all the deep emotions that everyone's going through, right? And
hmm
you forget that you're here to feel guilt, shame, sorrow, despair, um, and uh, and then on the higher side, elation, bliss, like fascination, curiosity, all of those emotions. That's what we're here for. If we're just, I was sitting there thinking because I was talking to Morgan on chatting on Facebook Messenger. And I was thinking, oh, she's every time I think of Morgan, I think she's like the slayer of emotionality. Like she always is really conscientious about zero pointing, right? I feel like that's her practice. She's really good at it. She's diligent, intentional. If there's an emotion that comes up, she's really good at trying to work through it to a point of neutrality. But then I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, what happens when you hit neutrality? And I'm telling you, I felt that sitting in this like weird zone between Christmas and I guess tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm back to work, where there is nothingness, right? There's a bit, and I don't sit as beautifully graceful as Morgan does in that. I'm sitting there like, oh man, I can't do this, right? I'm just like, I'm gonna jump off a cliff. Like I'm trying to be really good and just practice being present and mindful and
yeah.
finding that peace in the neutrality. But I don't know. It's been really hard for me. Like most of the time I just have that my natural instinct to emote, react, whatever it is, always is like it's like a knee-jerk reaction for me. It's hard programmed in, right?
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's I mean, there's so many different things at play. Judgment, self-judgment, uh, motivation, uh, trying to assimilate a new way of life because there it is. So whether it's me or whether it's you, and you go to your business and you deal with those things that maybe I don't have to deal with, we're still faced with this thing where there is a mindfulness, an awareness. There's an evolution that's happening, and like with your story about the whole thing about your brother, which was hilarious. Um, you have this new form of you uh, coming in, and you can't like ignore it. So if I have to go do a show and I don't feel like it, there's all these things I have to think about. You got to go and enter a space where there's all these different energies with different expectations and all this stuff. And both of us, all of us, are, kind of being continuously put into a place of practicing this awareness. And it's not really oh, do this and you're pious and you're in alignment. It's not about that. It's just about, okay, well, what happens if I do this? It's not what I used to do. Let me try
Yeah.
this and see what happens. And yeah, so I can't imagine like in your case, because I mean, I was in construction for 30 plus years and ran a lot of jobs. And that's a really tough place to be because you don't have employees. You have subcontractors.
Right.
So independent energies, basically.
Yes.
How can you tell them unless you book them every day what to do, when to do it, and all that stuff? So trying to apply something like that, just in my mind, going back to those days and trying to do it now, I know I wouldn't be able to do. I don't think I'd be able to do it. I'd probably lose my mind, or I'd probably be, sitting with Jack Daniel's honey whiskey every night.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
with the on the spiritual side, things get intense because things do get intense on both sides of it. Your soul side and your physical side, they collide sometimes, right? But you also find safe havens on both sides as well. So when, for example, when the pandemic started back in 2020, I found the distraction of my work and also of my family life really grounding,
Mm-hmm.
because I can feel deep within it's like unleash the Kraken. Like I can feel it so much and I didn't want to deal with it at that moment. So I can go and distract myself and look at like paint samples and play with fabric and tiles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just be like, no, it's okay. I'm going to create something pretty on this realm and it's all very tangible and I can feel it. And I feel some safety and some solace in that, right? And then I get really bored. Like, I'm like, fuck, if I have to pick another grout color, I'm going to like stab my eyes out. Or if I'm studying like fireplace inserts and I'm calculating the combustible materials of allowances so houses don't burn down, I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't do like, I am a soul. I'm built bigger for this. Why am I doing this, right? Then I jump onto the spiritual side and then I have all these experiences that excite me and keeps me like entertained is, I guess, the biggest thing for me is like keeping me engaged. I feel like that seems to be the word where you're like happily engaged with life. Because if you get to a point where I was and I still am, where I just don't feel anything, like numbness, and I'm like, is this zero pointing or is this like kind of like vampires or psychopaths where they feel nothing? You know what I mean? Like you can't get a reaction. Like you're just like, am I a psychopath? I feel like this is the same where you're seeing all of these demise of humanity, hostility, violence coming at you, and you're just not emoting. You're just like, on the bigger picture, everything is beautiful, everything is fine, right? Like it feels, I don't know, it just feels, I don't know, it feels like a big chunk of all of this year is like an existential crisis of balance. And it's just like, I really need to let go of that balance. But letting go is also like a hard thing because the human part of is you think you have control, even though we all know we don't. At the higher level, we have full control. At the human level, because we're so limited in what we see, we don't have that control. So trying to do the contract, expand, like you get to a point, I think like, well, my fear is like, for example, Morgan, she expands so much, she doesn't even become visible in my field anymore. You know what I mean? Or you're just like, you're not of this dimension, like can't interact with you unless, you know what I mean? And that's again, it's an attachment, but it's one of those things where the contraction and the expansions are so quick and so volatile. I don't know, just your brain gets fried.
And that's a great, I think about, I guess I'm thinking of a metaphor, like when I was a teenager, I used to ride my bike a lot. I used to ride it, many, many miles a day. And so, like going up to my school and back to my house, there was hills and then there was valley,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like I'm thinking about it because of what you were saying. It's like you get on a bike and you're always, there's this one place and it never lasts very long. I think it's that neutrality is what I'm trying to get at, where you're not really having to pedal. It's effortless and it's almost steering itself. But then here comes a hill, and then here comes and it's just, I don't know. For me, like listening to you, I think judgment has been a really big deal, and I think this, along with some other things, since like the middle of October, and I think the contractions and expansions are part of what's going on, obviously. And sometimes we look at the contractions and we go, "Oh wow, I'm, you know, I'm not up to where I need to be, or they're not up to where they need to be." But I think the same thing can be said about the expansions energetically, because the expansions take us to a certain place, and it's almost like you go on a sightseeing or a country cross country journey, and you're going to go to this place, and or at least and you've never been there, and on the way there you see these other places. So there's kind of this expansion to this place that you were going to go, okay, I'm just going to go to this place, and you find out, hey, wait a minute, I like that place about 25 miles back down the road better. So I
Yeah.
think an expansion has the same attributes as a contraction, and I think that, at least for me, uh, I was conditioned. I think for the most part we were conditioned that contraction is a bad thing. If a contraction is a bad thing, then expansion is a bad thing, or has bad attributes. If expansion is a good thing, then contraction has to be a good thing. I mean, so I don't know. I don't think there's any mistake that we inhale and exhale. So I just think that for everything that's happened, that we've done a really great job, and I think it's important to remind ourselves of that, because you're right. We're supposed to be human, and the human signs off on whatever's done. That's called free will.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I just want to bring up. So the other day, Todd had texted me he was going to Walmart, and I'm like, oh dear. I feel like every time you go to Walmart, you have so you have this bad habit of like going to Walmart and having this existential
Uh-huh.
experience, right? So like
Uh-huh.
you should turn the camera on because you start monologuing,
That could be
and then
good. Yeah. I mean, you see people doing it on TikTok all the time, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. So, so I teased you about it, but then I realized some of the shows you were talking about that you had like like existential experience while you were in Walmart, but you haven't really talked about it in conformity. You talked about it in bits and spices with your guests. So I would like to hear in the full expansion of your Walmart experience.
there was two that stand out, and I think the second one was, it's cold over here. It wasn't as cold as it is now. I mean, it's freaking like 18 degrees. I know that's nothing for you, but it's butt ass cold down here, and so it was cool. It must have been in the maybe the low 40s, and I went in, and you can always feel when something's going on, because there's like this air.
Yes.
And I went in, and it's always strange going into Walmart in a very small town in Arkansas, because this is an Arkansas originated company, and it's very much embedded. And so I see all of that, and that's natural. But on this particular occasion, when I walked in, everything was different in the air. It was almost like everybody was, there was no chaos. It was just this weird kind of space. And so I went through the motions. I got all my stuff, and I come out, and I'm checking out of the self checkout, and the machine wouldn't take my cucumber or something. I remember what it was, and there was these three people that worked there that were standing no more than 15 feet away from me in front of the like the service desk, and they were just watching me and other people checking out, because it's all self checkout. But I was right in front of them, and I'm trying to do this thing, and it won't take it. I'm trying to get the conveyor to go because it stopped, and I keep having to go all the way back, bring everything up. And I'm looking at these people, and part of me wanted to say, do you guys, want to make any money? Do you want to give me some customer service? There was that part of me. And I said, no, I'm not going to go there. And I just observed it. And I ended up taking the food that wouldn't get scanned. I just threw it on the other conveyor and finished checking out. And the interesting thing was, as soon as I did it, and I wasn't like in disgust, I just went, fuck this. And I just put it over there. The guy comes over and gets it, and he's going to go restock it. But he never says a word to me. So it was a real kind of a, stepping in or walking in two worlds still. And in the world that I guess I'm leaving, or the one that we've been used to, I got these three people standing over there doing nothing. Right. So I could see like the genius of not being able to ask anyone to help, or they're unwilling to help, or whatever the case was. So I'm there by myself to make my own decision. At the same time, I'm seeing this apathy that's part of this paradigm, almost like, let's see how far we can push you. Right now we're pushing you to do your shopping, buy the products that we want. We don't care what you want. We have a certain agenda or a certain game plan. And so you have to buy our products. Now you have to check out. I mean, you go into Walmart now, there are no people checking you out. Yeah. You're talking, okay. So it's like, how far can we push you? So the next time you come, there's going to be a sign on the door that says, okay, if your last name starts with an M, and you come in on a Monday, you have to clean the bathrooms. Like what? How far is this going to go? And so, and I'm watching all this, and I'm just kind of going, okay, this is pretty interesting. And of course, there was stuff that would be more understandable because of the context of what's happened at the time, and I don't remember. But so when I walked outside for the second time, this had happened to me, and this is like at 10:30 at night. So it should be getting colder. I walk outside, and it's literally like a humid summer day. I mean, I'm not making this up. It wasn't like brutal hot, but it was enough to where if I had these two shirts on, which I have on because I'm cold, I would have taken one off if I didn't, or my coat off. It was that warm. And all the way back to my house. In the parking lot, I saw a glitch, and I remember it was on the left side over here. I maybe got in the car, and I was about to take off, and I just saw this flash. And as I looked over to see what it was, it looked to me like almost like I guess a digital movie screen, and there was like an aberration, like a jagged line with sparks coming out of it. And I looked at it, and it didn't just disappear. It lasted for 3 or 4 seconds. And it was just kind of speaking to me in this language that the whole trip into Walmart was speaking. It wasn't through words. It was not hardly. It was just through the impressions and the feelings and the knowing, and it was weird. But anyway, that was just kind of another way it was showing or communicating with me, or whatever the case is. And then I came home, and some more stuff happened. But I don't know. For me, going into Walmart, I don't relish it. I try to go in there with a neutrality, and and I just take whatever comes. For me, it's almost like a little micro experience of the moment by moment that I'm striving for, back to what you were saying, which is this neutrality. But I agree with you as well, because we try to get so focused on being neutral. We're judgmental, whether we want to admit we're conscious of it or not, of ourselves, and therefore that which we experience. And what ends up happening is we don't get to be human. It's like we're dehumanizing, when the fact is we're not actually, in my opinion, for myself, I'm not actually trying to separate myself from any part of myself anymore, including my emotions. I'm just trying to take those things and apply their energy in a different way. And to me, the emotions is the biggest weapon in a positive way.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely why we are all here, is to go through and experience every emotion with our own unique perspective, right? Otherwise, we would just stay on that puffy cloud and observe with neutrality and love and light. But we chose not to. We wanted to go on to this 3D human experience and go through all of that. And I think what is happening right now is I think the breakdown though, the veil of like there was a strong separation for sure of human and being I don't want to like use the term spiritual because spiritual has a bit of a pious kind of connotation to it, which I'm not like a big fan of. But I want to say your energetic self. So your physical form and your energetic self. Energetic self has no boundaries. It is limitless. The creation of our energetic selves has no judgment. It's just, again, I want to use the analogy of like just a very simple light bulb, right? 40 watts versus 60 watts. One is not better than the other. It depends on the application that you're using it for. But with our human physical self, we have a need to put labels and values on everything so we can actually categorize our experiences, right? So we can go through and transmute on it. For with COVID, the whole collective experience has been so chaotic, and so I just want to say hostile, like so hostile. There is like if you were a loving person before, I'm pretty sure it's wearing your coping skills. Like I wouldn't say I'm a loving person. I have a big heart, but I don't approach things with like love and light. I'm very sardonic. Yeah, I'm very sardonic and like just borderline. Everything is, I don't know. It wears you down. People's coping skills are so down right now. And it's just like, it doesn't help that it seems like the environmental conditions, like right now. So I live in Vancouver, BC. And if you haven't heard, 2021 was the year of extreme weather conditions here. So we went through basically all of the southern part of BC was on fire during the summer, right? We had wildfires after wildfires, and that was normal because of the weather conditions. But what was abnormal was then we had floods. So it was like it's like polarization of the weather streams. So we had like flooding, which was very bad. It basically cut Vancouver off from the rest of Canada in terms of roadway conditions, like major highways. No one could access us. We were kind of like in the corridor on the western side by ourselves for like a month before the major highways could be repaired so that trucking can come in. We definitely had airlines, but the trucking transportation, we were gas rationing. Have you ever heard of that? Like I've never. You would go to the gas stations and they would say, you can only have 30 liters. Like it was insane. Food was rationed. Like you went to the grocery stores pre-pandemic, like things were limited. Meats were limited. There was just to make sure that everyone had enough and no one was going into like weird hoarding mode, right? And then we had a tornado touchdown right at our airport. It was so bizarre. We are not tornado country at all. It was the most bizarre thing. And now we're going through a winter storm. So I was telling Morgan, she's like, oh, can I schedule you in with Todd? She literally said this an hour ago. I'm like, hey, yeah, let's do it today. And as soon as I said that, my lights in the house started flickering and a big gust of wind came in. And I told her, I was like, I may or may not disappear off the face of the map because the wind is so bad here. Wi-Fi it'll be knocked out. Yeah. So we just go through like, BC, we seem to be a haven for like energetic clearing. Obviously, there's some density here that needs to happen to release all of it. But we've been going through like all of the elements. I'm just waiting on the earthquake, which is the last element to hit us, right? Which we're known for, but it has not hit us yet. I don't know if I should knock on wood or if I'm like taunting the gods, but that's like the last element of everything. It's insane.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter if you knock on wood, whether it occurs or not. You know, there's a lot to be said. That's a very powerful place, and I'm sure there's other places like it. And, Morgan always says a copy is a copy is a copy. I mean, there's a lot of women, a lot of people, all of us, I guess, to some degree or another, that anchor things onto the earth. And that's how these things grow. And that's how these things get grounded. And why wouldn't a place, a sacred area or whatever you want to call it, a PowerPoint, why wouldn't it do the same? I'm listening to what you're saying. And, I go back to last night. Now it's been getting, we've had some 30-degree weather here. But it kind of got weird and we had days we got up to 80 in the past week. And that's just unheard of. I'm in the mountains. But last night it started dropping very rapidly like it has tonight. and it got down to like 17 degrees, and the internet went out.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so the internet went out. I checked my phone; it was off and on. But obviously, it's so cold that these things start to happen. So I just started thinking, wow, okay, so I'm sitting here in this house, in this city, in this planet. I know I'm a soul, in a human body. Uh, Kind of like what we were talking about, like, yeah, I'm at this point where I get this, but I still want to be a human. I want to be a human as much as I can, moment by moment, and have those expansions with their gifts and their challenges and the contractions in the same, right? And
Yes.
so I was thinking in terms of like, what do you have, or what is the value in these conditions, which was 17 degrees. And I'm thinking in terms of, well, what if the internet went out everywhere? What if electricity went out? What if there was some more what we call natural catastrophes or natural disasters? There's been a bunch of tornadoes over here, pretty devastating. I
Yes.
didn't know all that stuff happened in Vancouver, but stuff like this going on everywhere. And I thought, so what do you got? Like, what do you have? Well, I have my consciousness. I can reach Morgan. I can reach Hung. I can, kind of dig my heels in and be ready for anything. And of course, I get taken back to the days on the streets all the time, because that there was a lot of that going on, and I try to, kind of like revisit or align or realign or step back in those shoes to like, what were you really feeling? What was your body feeling? And so on. But if I look at like what you're describing that happened around Vancouver, it's a bigger picture for me energetically than what I was going through last night. Because take what happened to you, or happened to Vancouver in 2021, and magnify it times 10. Okay. This is how close we are to a reality that will be here sooner than later. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
It's a clean sweep. But imagine where your heart is. Imagine where your mind is if something like that occurred in your area, and it's 5 times as bad, or even 3 times as extreme as what you guys went through. Because that's unheard of, to have an area that's that populated to be cut off from the rest of the world for a month. That's
Yeah,
insane.
that is insane.
So I get back
And
to
you
huh?
again, it's one of those things where you're like, the human side is like, what the fuck? Like, seriously? You just and you shut down, because your capacity to process the stimulation coming at you on both ends, spiritually, physically, just you're in almost survival mode, but not really. I don't want to say we were in survival mode, because nobody really was. We're still well taken care of. But all of that is up for evaluation, right?
Yeah.
And then that's when I started shutting down, where I couldn't feel things because you were at capacity. So but then that in our community is right now being like, it's a tool that is being used to help with trauma.
Yeah.
But I think what it is we have to recognize that it's a tool, a short-term tool.
Yes.
It's not a state of being. Like, going into that as a state of being where it's sustainable, you will actually self-select out of the human experience, meaning you will die. If you decide to get to that point and you sustain it, you will self-select out, because there's nothing else for you. You're at the end of the human experience game, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. Or you can say, look, if you're showing the universe, if you're out of your body, because that's what you're talking about. If you're out of your body, then the universe is going to go, hey, what's the point? I mean, you're out of your body. You're telling me you're more comfortable. I mean, you're right. It's a tool. And again, like you said, we're here to be human. And, one of the things that I'm understanding more and more too is, the human is the decision maker. And that neutrality can offer us a spiritual bypass highway. It's not a big deal. We're not going to suffer for eternity. There is no hell. we're put in a very extraordinary, unique situation as a group. This is a lot of things have been building up to this point. And that's why I go back to what you were saying. Like if I multiplied that times 5 or 6 or whatever, what would my human be going through? I mean, would I go into total fear? And if I did, that's understandable. But certainly there's got to be something going on here, that, as things become more extreme, my abilities and my capacity and my presence can why wouldn't it be being expanded as well? And I think we've proven that over the last few years, where we have, when these waves come in, or even when a year comes by, where we have been able to not only get through it, but get through it and expand. So I don't know. It's obviously a lot of thoughts. People have been talking about as we got into the end of the year, it like a giant sucking sound, like everything's being pulled down the drain, everything's being squeezed, and there's a lot on the plate. But I think that we have the capacity to keep expanding. I think we've proven that.
I think one of the other interesting things is, in terms of the energetic feedback, I have to say dream time. I don't know how your dream time is. So during my dream time is where I feel like I do a lot of my own inner work. And I sincerely believe I actually am more active in my other, like simultaneous multi-dimensional aspects. I think I'm more active there. And the human experience here is just like a short vacation for me for the real work that is whatever it is. So yes. The last night I had 2 back-to-back intense dreams where I haven't had that in a long time. So it kind of signaled like something cracked, like and it was intense. Like the first dream, just to very shortly, the first dream was basically there was a time traveler that came through to this dimension and wanted to retrieve me to go back to his dimension, just because there was something more. I guess I died there. I'm not sure. I think I died in that dimension, and that they needed an aspect of me to be in that dimension to do something significant, or something catastrophic would happen.
Sounds like you had a date.
Yeah. Very narcissistic and egoic. Huong is the center hero, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. The point is I normally don't dream of this type of experience. Like I don't dream of time traveling or portals or people retrieving me into portals. But this person was quite adamant that it had to happen. And then I woke up from it. My second dream, I go into a home and the home looks very nonchalant, your average home from the very front. And then I go in, my parents are like, we bought a new home and we want all of our family to live in it because it's big enough for all of us. We have a big family. So I'm like, well, this house is hell no. This house is not going to fit all of us. I go in and it's like this house, if you took Las Vegas architecture on crack and combined it with like a fun house, like a carnival, that's what it was. It was like you go in and there's just corridors and corridors. And I had 2 guides, one that looked like a snake, but it had, kind of like snake-like. And the other one was like a fairy mouse. The fairy, it's like the good and the evil sitting on your shoulder going through. And they were like my tour guides as I went through this home. And the weird thing is the construct of this home was our humanity constructs. So each room emanated a virtue of us, right? Whether that be courage, strength, peace, whatever. All the rooms had it. And it was, as you went in, my little tour guides would say like really bizarre things. And I am not the type of mindset where I think the archons or the reptilians are harvesting our energy. I know that's a narrative a lot of people thrive on, makes them feel alive. I'm not one of those people. But in my dream,
tell me how I'm dying so I can feel like I'm alive.
Exactly. It's like cool. For your reality, if you're feeling like alive and kicking and your blood is boiling, good for you. That's totally not mine. But in this dream, the one that was like a snake kept saying, this is how the energy emotions are harvested for this experience. And then so it was very bizarre. Like it was just bizarre. And then I think when I woke up, and then I read Morgan's post, and I almost like peed my pants. So if you haven't seen Morgan's post today, she posted about the third energy in terms of coming to fruition pretty shortly. And I think she had put a date to it. I think it's February-ish, like around that date. And the image that stood out is she posted a golden egg of a dragon with a baby dragon in it, right? And we haven't talked about dragons for a long time, because the dragons for me really have been non-existent since the beginning of COVID. Like I don't know. They're just not in my reality. I haven't had any experiences with them. But I did have a very strange experience 3 days ago. I was deep cleaning my headboard in my bedroom, and I found a card. And I didn't even know this card was missing. So I'm going to hold it up. I don't know if you can see it. Can everyone see it?
Let's blow it up. Hang on. There we go. What does that say? Golden. The golden orange dragon expands your light for something.
For ascension. So it says golden orange dragon, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but it basically is, I'm trying to get, so yeah, expands your light for ascension. And says, be a peaceful warrior, help those in need, and remember your magnificence. So I find that really ironic. Like, this is my dragon's humor. Just like, so it's one of those things where it's just like, this dragon looks so much like the one that Morgan posted. Can you pull up Morgan's post?
Yeah, let me see. I read that today. I was kind of in and out, and I didn't pick up on the third energy part of it, but I just didn't have a chance to really go through it. Okay, here, let me see. Let me pull it up. Here's the picture. And I got to go back here and do this. Okay. This is it. Yeah. Boom. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks very similar. Very similar.
Yeah. So it was so crazy, the synchronicity of that. I don't know what it means, but I still like the synchronicity.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I mean, obviously it's going on more and more and more. Absolutely. You know, I mean, it's the dragon thing, the snake thing.
So
Last night I was in the inner earth, and there was two species of, I guess, inner earth star family, or whatever you want to call it. One of them was a serpent humanoid, and the other one I can't remember, but it may have been an avian, but both of them were basically talking about, I guess in a way, our history, you know, and really their relationship to us, you know, even though it was just interesting because you just talked about synchronicity, and then you were talking about having that lucid dream, and there was a snake being involved, and you know, these things are, I think, important to mention. We may not understand them, but I believe we're getting somewhere with it, because there are a lot of people pulling down the same information at the same time. You see a lot of that.
Yeah.
COVID. Somebody mentioned COVID. You mentioned COVID earlier, and you were saying something at the time, and it was like, oh, she just hit it. The COVID's a perfect example. You see, you know, I like everybody have struggled with this thing. I don't think I've been pulled down as much as I've seen a lot of people, which doesn't mean anything. It just means it's a different perspective. But I think the thing is that it's been prominent for everybody. And if I look at it, the way I have to engage it now is where do I stand with it? Not out there. Not out with what's going on or not going on, or whatever the case is, or what's good and what's not. Not that. But my own journey. Where do I stand with it? It's no different than anything else. It's no different than money. It's no different than. And so I know it's very possible I'm coming to a a place in the road where I'm going to have to make some choices, and I'm okay with that. I'm not going to think about it right now, but what I do know, and that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to allow my field to be created by my perception or my resistance or my attachment to the whole story out there. Every single one of us, including myself, has its own relationship with that and all of its branches of it. And it's just like I was talking to Nicola on the previous show and talking about these young kids. These young kids, and you can look at different people's intel, but like Patricia Cutter-Robles, with after 1989, they came in without karma. Now you've got kids, I've got kids, a lot of us have kids. These kids are different. There's a lot of difference between their frequency and our frequency in the 1960s or the 1970s. They're virtually impenetrable. We've been impenetrable. We've overcome GMOs. We've overcome this. We've overcome that. We forget that each one of us is limitless and omniscient and capable. And for me, it's a lot easier for me to keep my balance if I can just stay focused on my relationship with everything external, as opposed to the external's relationship with us as a whole. It becomes too difficult when I know that these atrocities are going on, or this is going on, or that, and I start to form opinions, and then I get a charge, and then my field's changed. But I think that's a really good example. I know it's brought a lot of things to the table, but I really feel like it's been a great gift for us. And I'm happy to be able, I'm happy that I can see it that way most of the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, yes. It's just one of those. It's those situations where you feel the division is so deep in all communities, not just spiritual communities, right? Just all communities, and people are so they're activating their fear sphere. So what that happens is you get the entanglement of it, and it can enter your zone, right? So if you hold your zone and you just have to be mindful, that's where if you have any coping mechanisms left, you create your sphere, and you have to constantly remind yourself that when you reset your energy, the physicality will fall into alignment. It's just part of quantum physics, right? But it's one of those things where I feel everyone is at a point where the tools don't work anymore. Do you feel that? Like the tools that used to assist you into transmuting and relating and reperspecting and reframing, they don't have the same efficacy anymore.
I agree.
And then so you're kind of at loss, where you're just like, okay, well, if that doesn't work, this doesn't work, and you fall on bad habits, and you realize your bad habits, like drinking, also doesn't work. All it does is it gives you a headache and puffy face. So you're like, where is it? You know what I mean? If all this energy is new, we need to be given new coping skills. Where are the new coping skills? Because everything is so extreme. So obviously there will be something gifted to us, but we haven't really figured that out yet, where you're just like, okay, here is an experience. Here is the tool to shift your experience that will bring you a different experience that you will be a lot happier with. That tool is missing.
Well, I think we're creating those tools. I think that you've seen a lot of evidence of this, where people over the years have downloaded stuff, very stuff that's been invaluable and still is. Just depending on who you are and what's going on at the time, But and then we've all had that, like in your case, maybe it's with the dragons, although that was a very cultural thing, and it was within your family, so that's maybe not a great example. But people like say, I rewoke in 2011, and certain things were shown to me and given to me, and that's a big kind of a challenge to the egoic side of us, or the human side of us, or whatever you want to call it. But I feel like that we're creating it, and so on one hand, you can say everything's being taken away from us. It is, but it's not. it's not like the time to run up the flag and surrender everything. It's just a frequency. It's a pattern, and it's dictated by us. So for me, I think this is a great topic, what you're bringing up right now, because I don't have the answer. I've never really put myself out there like with an answer, but I can tell you that what's been happening to me, and I do think that recent insight, recent experiences, and present experience and insights are the best thing we have to offer each other and ourselves. But what's been happening is when I go in at night, I instead of like going, I want this, I desire this from my heart, I want to do good. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm actually programming myself in a way that I never had before. Like I'm kind of taking the emotions out of it in the old way, and the whole thought process is in the old way. And I'm just saying, hey, I run this thing. And I asked for all kinds of stuff. I did it last night because I saw this video. And this video was a big reminder because I'd already started on this like 3-4 days ago. So there's videos of this priest. I'm sure if he's a priest, he's a spiritual guy that's a doctor or scientist. I can't remember everything about the guy, but it was very impressive, and it's not about the subject matter. He was discussing how DNA and RNA work organically in the body. The DNA is the God structure. It's the molecular or the atomic of God, or however you want to put it, God particle. And it is what we are. And then he was talking about what you call mRNA. Now, I'd heard of that because of the vaccines, but there's actually an organic mRNA. So, as he was saying in the video, if I get a cut on my hand and I lose X, Y, and Z, then the M stands for messengers, and the RNA sends messages to the rest of the body to say, hey, we need 300 qubits of such and such to rebuild or reform what's just been damaged. And then he went on to explain how that these things have mRNA in it and that it's inorganic. Now, this is kind of where I parted company with him, and I don't want to get off on the wrong point of what I was trying to make. He went into the big bad wolf part of it. I didn't. I said, this is an opportunity for me with neutrality or this higher perspective, not to get charged either way, and I'm gonna uphold that. But what I did get from it was DNA, right? And I've heard Morgan and worked with Morgan, talked about DNA, reprogramming DNA. I've done it, but this, I thought, oh, I can take this to a deeper level now. I've got this practice going now, even though it's only been 3 or 4 days. I just knew I could do it. So I went to bed, pulled up the DNA. I started talking to the DNA about attributes that I would like. And I started to talk to the mRNA to deliver the message. And now these were everything from help me understand to give me strength to, can I have some of my hair back on my head maybe, and maybe could you make it a little darker? But seriously, I was actually not confining myself in my programming, in my self-programming. I was not confining myself to the altruistic and the typical, stereotypical what dreams are made of. I was going to my most vulnerable points. I was going to my biggest dreams, and I was doing it by speaking directly to the mRNA and the DNA. And I don't know, I'm just going to keep going down that road because I've been led there. And I got to believe that, back to what you were saying about synchronicity, I probably listened to that guy. It was probably like 7 or 9 minutes. I probably initially kept it on in the pattern of carrying a charge. By the time it was over, oh, I know this and I know that, but it wasn't. I consciously went, I'm not going to take a charge. There's got to be a reason I'm looking at this, and then snap the DNA thing, and then that's what came from it. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that the human is the final decision maker, and without getting a charge and saying, hey, I'm the only boots on the ground, don't tell me what to do, F off, and then get your ass kicked, to say, look, help me, work with me. I want to be in my full power. I am in my full power. I'm learning. I'm trying. Guide me. So, whatever I need to actually input it into the computer is, kind of in a non personal. I don't say impersonal, but not a robotic way. But with the heart there, but also respecting the technology.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, no, there is a lot going on. And it's one of those things where it's just like, it's interesting to see the shift in modalities as well, right? Because there definitely is a changing of the guards. So whatever used to work for you, whatever you used as a definition to define yourself as successfully adulting, whatever that means, that has all shifted for everybody. So we're kind of at the point of choosing to either put yourself back together, right? So there's like in the Asian culture, the Japanese people, they would put gold on cracked pottery, and they see the beauty in that. And all it is basically reframing your negative experiences to show that without that you did not grow, right? To basically highlight that your most vulnerable moments are all your golden moments. So there's that. And then there's the other part of it where it's just like, well, or do we just let it go to shit? You know what I mean? Like back off, let the world vaporize. I've been watching way too many sci-fi movies. Let it go to like astral dust or the original like particle levels, and just not rebuild, just create from there. And it's not a creation of better or a creation of improvement or evolution, just create. But in that creation, there is gratitude for every moment of creation. Because I think with the human experience, there's a leg of that where we create and we're like, it's like a Fortune 500 company. We keep creating, but there's no gratitude for every moment of creation.
Right.
You lag it, right? We have to like age and then appreciate our hair. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So why didn't we appreciate our voluptuous hair when we were younger, and flaunt the crap out of it? Why did we have to be like humble about it? And now you're mourning your hair. but it's every evolution. It's almost like every evolution we need a shut off of the past, so we can't do that comparison. So we can actually just stay in this moment and just appreciate the current creation. Because with us, we have a leg. And with that leg is disappointment, because you're trying to get back to that place. And everyone, if you lived as long as Todd Medina, you will know. Just kidding. You will know that that place is never the same. You try to get back to that historic referencing of happiness, and you're like, this is not as good as I remembered it. You know what I mean? Because you changed. Everything has changed. It's only in those reference points happen only in a pinpoint in a timeline, and that is it.
Well, what you're saying is a very powerful thing, because we've all can identify with once we're beyond something, beyond the experience, and then in reflection, we find gratitude. I think that's a great thing, because the more we can look back at everything, with gratitude, which sometimes you got to look for it, right? I mean, and it's going to carry over to the present. You're going to start to have, and I was telling you this the last 2, 3, 4 shows. I mean, probably August, September, I started doing these gratitude affirmations as I laid in bed in the morning, first thing, and don't get on the phone. And I know it sounds Mickey Mouse and elementary, but it worked for me. And I'm not saying it'll work for anyone else, but that's been extrapolated to other, let's just say, small signature templates of modalities for myself that involve gratitude, because I find that when I do that, it calms me. It takes me to this place, this peace. Things aren't always perfect, but I like it there. I like, and that's one of the things I found out too, going back, because I hadn't done it for years. I really hadn't done it. I really hadn't gone back to the streets in those frequencies up until just a few months ago. And I started going back, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, a little bit more. And one of the things I found, probably the most significant thing I found, which I did find last night for an extended period of time before I fell asleep, was just this space of total. I don't know how to explain it, but I can tell you that, and it's not going to sound right, but total silence, but not silence to the ear, like this void-esque type of atmosphere, where I must be in some type of neutral zone, yet I'm totally with my human, Todd, and with my soul, which is me. It was hard for me to understand it last night, and the way that I got there, that I was able to understand it more, was I started actually saying who's talking. Like, I've got all these aspects, right? Even as a human being alone, I've got all these aspects. I used to talk this way with these people and this way with that people and act this way, right? And so I said, and it sounded like, I guess, like an inner child voice. And I said, this is Todd. And here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I desire. Here's my heart, whatever it is, right? And then I waited, right? I waited for the answer. And in that moment, I was taken back to those points on the streets alone when I was by myself, trying to sleep or whatever the case was, just have some peace. And I was taken back to this place, and I realized that it never spoke to me. Not in those ways. It was everything around me, right? And then at 4:00 in the morning, I'm thinking, are you crazy? And then I heard this bang. Oh, no, you're not. And then a couple of minutes later, are you crazy? Bang. I heard this other bang, like somebody was on the roof. Okay. Like went boom, So like that happened with you after you said, I'm going to come on the show today. I mean, these are the ways it speaks. And I don't know. I hope maybe that'll help somebody, but that's kind of where I'm at. That's like last night, and but I find that place is, I wouldn't call it like, I don't think I would call it like neutrality. I think I would just call it, I don't know, like that place that's always there that never goes away, but I spend a lot of time away from it. And I'm finding it helpful to be in that place now. And it's a place of unknowing and I guess, other things, but it's familiar.
Yeah. I think what you're describing is like, it's almost like the womb state, right? Where
yes.
There's external stimulation all around you, but you feel safe and you feel loved and you have no idea why.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And all the stimulation stimulation is not there as a child. When you're in the womb, you don't experience it in the same way, right? You're just coddled. And it's a great analogy and metaphor, and I think tool for a lot of people, because that's really relatable. And I think one of the things that you do, I find it really beautiful to watch you grow on camera, because I know when you first started off hosting basically your guests, you would play a small role. Like you would just allow your guests to flex their muscles. Let's just put it really bluntly, right? And you would just allow them to flex. But it's one of those things where now you're kind of in a situation where you don't need to play small.
Yeah.
And it's because of the work that you and Morgan have done together. You've gone to a place where you're really confident, and you should be sharing more tools like that, where it's just like, when it gets so chaotic out here, this is what works for me. And it's not, obviously it doesn't work for everybody. That's just pretty obvious, right? You take what works for you, discernment, but people need to hear different, I guess, coping modalities right now, because everyone is so fried.
Yeah. We had a couple on, God, what was it, 2 days ago or something? I don't remember nothing. A beautiful couple he was from Norway, she was from Australia. And one of them or the other, and it doesn't matter which one, because the revelation that I got was one of them was saying to the other, I can be totally vulnerable, right? And for some reason, those words just stood out. Now, I can relate to this and I can relate to that, but there was something else in it. And I thought to myself, for myself, I was like, look, you pretty much, like no filter. You're too open probably sometimes, and things but I started to ask myself, have you been totally vulnerable? Like, have you been totally vulnerable? Have you experienced total vulnerability with another person? I'm talking about when another person is vulnerable with you.
Yeah.
Just as much as am I vulnerable with another person. Now this, don't everybody just think about Morgan. This is about everyone for me as I'm looking at everything and trying to understand it. And I started to go, that's really what holds us back, because you're right. There's so many things out there. I'm getting a lot of messages again. It had been since before my birthday last month. And a lot of what I'm hearing are, it's time for me to come out, and I have this to offer and I have that to offer. And it's not braggadocio and it's not overly inflated ego. It's just somebody getting the balls to go, I'm ready to do this. And that's what it feels like to me. You said like, okay, well, we've done a lot of work together. We have done a lot of work together, Morgan and I, and she's led the way. And I've learned a lot. And I'm sure it works both ways. But I can tell you right now, I'm not confident. I'm not without fear.
Yeah.
I don't find it warm and fuzzy to jump on here. I love coming on with you. I wasn't planning on it. I got the message. I'm like, yeah, let's do this, But there's something about that, I think, that is inevitable, is we are either going to get squeezed and end up in the same place, or we're going to express ourselves, which isn't always verbally, and align ourselves with our, let's say, body language frequency with our words and our thoughts. I mean, this is the path. Whether it's neutrality or 0 point, I don't know. But I know that when my thoughts and words and actions are in alignment, that things start happening. And people have been talking about miracles. Nicola was talking about miracles. I feel like we're going to look back on this and see a lot of miracles that we didn't recognize, to your point earlier, because we weren't enjoying it, because we weren't present. But we've done some, knowing you, and I'm just giving this as an example, okay? Yeah. We've met in the flesh twice. Is that right?
Yes, in Kauai, yeah. And in
Okay. So if I just look at that little leg of the journey, we get married by chance in a fucking spiral made with magic in the middle of a parking lot of a business in a small town in New Jersey. Okay?
Yeah.
Still got no money, no nothing, and all that, both of us. She goes back to Australia. I got $427, and I find a ticket for $400 to go to Kauai, and I don't even know what the place is, right? And again, the synchronicities led there. We're over there trying to just rub two nickels together, and you show up on the south end of the island. Hey, do you want to get together? And I look at your Facebook page the other day. We have 6 friends, 6 mutual friends.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of Facebook friends.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if I look at like the part of the story going to Kauai, her coming over, you showing up, I mean, like, this is like, how does this happen?
Yeah, exactly.
How does it happen when you're in the middle of winter in Vancouver and you go to get in your car and 2 dragons show up and say, you need to go see Todd and Morgan 4.5 hours away across the U.S. border? Like, how does that happen? Like, these miracles are everywhere. And I have a feeling that where we're going to see a lot of this, or becoming to our awareness, is where it's going to come into our awareness, is with our kids. Like, I'm looking at my kids now in a totally different way.
Yeah.
I got like a 19 and a 20-year-old, very different on the surface. very different paths, but I'm watching them basically grow the way we've all been grown in this community, which is the expansion contraction thing, or the stuff's coming in faster, but we're adapting with it and processing and expanding at the same pace or greater. I'm watching this happen with these kids, and I'm thinking, holy shit, like where does this stop? So I don't know. I got off on a tangent.
No, I think you were trying to, basically you're just saying that you were, the miracle part of it, we definitely can do a deep dive, and you will always find the miracle part of your life for sure, right? That's part of the human experience, is like when you're like, oh, I thought it was just, the human experience was just a shit show with no destiny.
Yeah, right.
But then destiny interludes with it, and you have no choice but to confront it and like integrate it into your world, right? So there's definitely points of destiny where you're like, how does this happen? You weren't planning any of those things. And so I think, just to bring you back to your original story arc that you got off track is you're saying that it's harder for you to be on camera lately because you're just at the point where you're not sure if you can be fully vulnerable. I'm not sure if you were trying to push yourself to be more vulnerable or
no. I think what it is when you come on, and I guess for me it's just a replica for everybody else in terms of the pattern of the energy or the pattern of the lesson or whatever. It might show up different ways for other people, like, how they go to work or how they go visit so-and-so or whatever. But for me, it's not like, it's like if you get on, you have no choice. Like, you can't bullshit around. You can't project. You can't. Yes. You're gonna get mind fucked by yourself in the show. So it's like, do I want to go on? Can I be 100% vulnerable to the best of my ability? Because as soon as the button gets pushed, you're no longer in a space where you can even think. You're just kind of there, and then you start going off on these different arcs, like I just did a second ago. But it's just kind of like, if I'm going to do it, I know what's coming and I know what's going to be required of me. And I'll tell you one thing: it's probably been harder to recover from doing a show than it has been to do a show. And it's hard to do a show. Yes. But, I'm kind of like determined, not say determined, but like, because again, no charge, no force, but I understand through signs given, and everybody has their own for their own lives, that I'm to be doing this, that I'm part of a partnership with Morgan. I'm part of a energetic enterprise with Soulogy, which has who knows how many soul family members. There's just this whole thing pointing that direction, and I think another reason that it's been challenging is because there has been a lot of stuff coming to the surface for me and everybody else. Yeah. And I'll just give you one quick example. Like 4 or 5 days ago, I've never had a recognition or recollection where I could firmly say in this incarnation that I was sexually abused. I can say that I have seen mounting evidence of being sexually molested, particularly as a child, in previous incarnations. Like, it was rampant. Because, like, for instance, I was, say, in a monastery with monks, and I never even saw a woman, or there just a lot of stuff has come back. Well, about 4 or 5 days ago, I was just whatever, I don't know, was coming in, and all of a sudden, bam, I got this memory, and I'm like starting to get sick, and nauseous. And, we've all been through this drill. This might be an extreme example, but, this is a wave. This is information. This is code. This is here for a reason. What are you going to do? And I kind of sat with it, and I'm trying to like not throw up, and I'm like, you know, just trying to get my breath straight. And I didn't go into the details, right? I didn't go, well, what exactly happened? And da, 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 da. I didn't do that. And I didn't do that on purpose. It just happened. I just went into the energy of it, and I remembered it. I could smell it. I could hear it. I could, you know what I mean? And so what I'm trying to say is these things are happening to everybody at warp speed. So then to try to go out and do anything is not the easiest thing in the world, right? And so I think that applies to everybody. And my one little memory could be the equivalent of somebody else having 15 micro memories in an hour, or I don't know, whatever the time frame is. But yeah, so I mean, I think this is a good line of questioning because whatever we're going through it. Yet we're still, you know, we're still presented with, you can call it the challenge or the reality of going out to function with those things that we do in our life. And that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things where it's the energies that are coming in are pretty vicious. They're definitely not nurturing energies, right? Where you're just like, oh, I'm safe in the womb. Nothing is going to happen to me. You really are going through all your vulnerabilities. And I don't want to say healing, because I feel like that is an overarching term as well. But I think you're going through all your vulnerabilities, and the task is to empower your vulnerabilities, like to basically transmute them, where you feel like once you get through that memory, like if you get accosted with that memory sounds like it came out of nowhere for you, right? Like it's pretty very deep and it came out of there nowhere for you, is to all of your life experiences at that moment probably was like, now what? You know what I mean? Is this a character building moment, or is this just a moment? I think that's where everyone is evaluating everything huge coming in now. It's just like, is this a character building moment where I need to actually deal with it and not bypass it? Or do I get to the point where it's just, there's no point to this memory? Like it doesn't affect me. And then you can label it like me and call yourself a psychopath, where you can't emote towards it because you're just like, I don't know. You know what? And that's okay too, where you're just like, I'm not going to react to it. It's okay. There are so much stimulation coming at you. We get to choose what we want to react to. So it's one of those things where if like you don't want to be accosted by whatever it is, then you don't have to. You can. There are many, many, many souls on this earth, and they're all slated for every experience. You don't have to experience every single thing, right?
No.
But yeah, so it's one of those things where it's just like, and you need to be a little bit more tender with yourself with that.
Big time.
So for example, before I got on this show, it's just like there was so much. In our family, for example, we've gone through a lot. Health was definitely one of the virtues that came up for evaluation for 2021. I think everyone in my family was at a point where they weren't sure if the health that they were going through, the health issues that they were going through, was going to be manageable or is going to be the end of your life cycle kind of thing. So these were big issues that came up throughout all of 2021. We did have two elders on my husband's side. He had two grandparents pass away on the same day, so on the 27th. But prior to that, on Christmas Eve, we also had a beautiful new nephew that was born, right? So our family right now is kind of, we're sitting in the non-emotive energy because there's so much going at us. Like there's one where you want to celebrate this new life that was gifted into our family, but at the same time, there's like two that have exited, right? So we can't, it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't know what the fuck to do. You know what I mean? Like you just sit there, you're like, I really want to be in this moment, but I can't be in this moment because the emotional fortitude is just broken open and everything is like verbal diarrhea on the floor. You're trying to figure out what is
That's right.
important.
I love that. Emotional
You,
fortitude. That's a great, because you don't have any at that point.
I don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
you just don't know how to pick up the pieces, right?
well, I picture like what you're saying. And I picture like, say you go to like a public swimming pool, like those Olympic sized swimming pools, and you're standing in the water and it's 4 feet deep, you know, and you've seen those wave parks where they have the waves. They're kind
Yeah,
of the similar shape, and all of a sudden, instantaneously, the water goes from 4 feet to 15 feet, and you're standing in the middle of the pool. And it's like somebody comes up to you in that moment and goes, "Okay, what are you gonna do now?"
yeah,
And you're like, "Fuck off," let me understand what the fuck's going on here, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's what's happening, and we're so used to being told, "Take this pill, push this button, pull up at this drive-through, and snap, 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 get what you want." Uh, that I think part of what's really, I mean, to me, it's very profound. What you're saying we don't even know what's hit us. So give me a moment
yes,
before you tell me that I'm not on the ball, or before I tell myself, more importantly,
yeah,
that what's wrong with me. Like, why am I down? Well, shit, it just went from 4 feet to 15. I haven't swam in 10 years. How am I going to get back over there 30 yards to the, I mean, we don't even know what's hit us because it's happening so fast. But
yeah,
I really feel like that what you said is like, go easy on yourself, because that's really where it starts and stops. That's where you're creating. That's where I'm creating. If I'm going to beat the shit out of myself, and it's not about whether somebody says this to me or says that to me. It's not about that. It's
yeah,
about it's about me, and that is and me includes everybody, but it's me. How am I going to fix, or whatever you want to call it, me, if I'm over here looking at Tom, Dick, and Harry, okay, and going, oh, well, they're not awake, or oh, they did this, or they wore a mask, or they didn't wear a mask. No, it's about me, and so that's, I think I see more people talking about that and writing about this, and it's not a perfect recipe. It's a maybe something that, hey, this looks like this is the right way to go. I'm going to take care of myself. And to your point also, is we start saying these things and hearing these things, and many people could attest to this. You get something, you go share it, but you're not embodying it. It takes some time. All right. Morgan taught me that a long time ago. I started watching people. I started watching myself. That's exactly what happens. Why would the individuals be different than the collective? So this stuff comes in, and part of what comes in is an expansion of our, of our abilities, really, but it doesn't just, we don't just wake up to it. It's a gradual thing. And here we go again with the expansions and contractions, which I think is, I probably would have argued with that before this show. Listening to you,
right,
no, there's a lot of sense to what you said, because listening to you explain it the way you did, in that moment, I was able to go, yeah, just what I said. I was like, okay, there's just as much good in the expansion as there is in the contraction, and vice versa. Why have we been damning the contractions? Right? Like, why have I been damning the contraction? And maybe I'm not real bad about it, maybe whatever. But the point is, I'm not looking at it in the same way. I don't say we had a bunch of energy came down and I contracted. We say, oh, I expanded because I'm Superman. Let me show you the S on my chest, right? I mean,
yeah,
so that, I think that's somehow, some way, that which you explained, that is almost like a modern parable, right? Like it's like a template. It doesn't set up. It's not set up the way of old, where it's a big long story, right? It's just these few words in kind of a semantic, geomantic pattern, right? The more I expand, the more I contract, basically,
yeah,
that they're one and the same. And that's to me, kind of sums up what we're actually, I guess, embodying more and more, which is, I guess, in itself, it is that quantum, 0 point field,
Yeah.
whatever
Well,
that is.
the thing about quantum physics is the expansion and contraction. Every time the same amount that you expand, you have to come back in. That's just balance, right? Because what happens is then you explode. The elastic breaks, right? So there is an expansion. There's limitations in our dimension for sure when it comes to expansion and contraction. So what I've been telling myself, and this is just for me, that has been helpful, is in the modern world of evolution, like we have to evolve. Soul consciousness has to evolve. We have to ascend. We have to get to 8th level. Like all this have to. It's, do we have to?
No.
Seems like a lot of fucking work. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know what? I'm happy sitting on the beach, getting sand in my crack, drinking tequila, and having a pretty cabana boy bring it to me. I don't need to do any of that stuff. You soul soldiers out there, you want to expand up until 8th level, defeat archons, take down the cabal. You go for it, right? I'm gonna work on my tan. I don't know. Like it doesn't
more
seem
power
that
to you. I got a message before the last show, and I'm not judging this person. And they sent me a message, and they said, "I got a really bad feeling about this next show. Maybe you should cancel it." and this is 30 minutes after getting, trying to get back in my body, waking up, and I've had a bad headache. Like now, it's 5 or 6 days in a row. I mean, it's like a migraine-esque, but it's not quite like that. It's a weird headache. But anyway, and I looked at it and I was like, I didn't have the like your thing with the warrior dying, and the peace Nick coming in. I didn't have like this, and I haven't for a while. I looked at it and I went, I didn't go, who the fuck does he think he is, or or anything. I didn't look at it that way. I just went, oh, that's interesting. I mean, that's obviously being shown to me for a reason, and I just spent whatever time I needed to, and I just kind of blew it off. But my point is, that is just another, and I'm sure it's not about people, but it's just another version, another look of the same old thing, which is, you better do this, or here's a program, take it because it's the end all cure all, or whatever it is, and but it was interesting because I didn't really react the same way. I didn't, and I think part of it too, you were talking about like doing shows and the challenge. Some, it's just not operating the same way. You wake up, you're just like a zombie, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the right state. It's just like this. You don't really have thoughts like you did. You're just kind of like there, right? And you're making your way, right? And it's like coming out of a sleep or something. And these things like this, I think they don't even register, in part because I'm not registrable in myself. Like I don't have anything for you to come through on, because I'm just in this space of myself, which I'm not saying is a great space to be in. A space I understand. It's just the way it is, right? I mean, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and because I think pre-COVID, we had a little bit of allowance to be performative in how we actually share ourselves, right? Yeah. So for you, you basically jump on camera and you need to engage the audience, and regardless of who the proxy is with you, you still need to show some. You have to be kind of a gracious host, right? You can't say, "Oh, you asshole." That's a bit like for me behind the camera, I'm not in front of the camera. I'll be like, "Oh, you're so full of shit." Like, you know what I mean? But you can't be like that. Well, I suppose you could, but it's one of those social constructs where it's just like, it's not very nice, right? Like you're practicing kindness. So if you don't have that velocity for that day, performing, which is like basically you're being a fraud version of yourself, right? You can't do it. And what happens is the universe is going to shut you down anyways.
Of course.
Regardless, even if you force it, it's going to shut you down. So
you saw that happen.
Yes.
I mean,
so it's more about quality. I think the consumption of like the mass consumption of everything, whether it be experiences, spiritual experiences, like people, there are like spiritual junkies out there that just go from coursework to coursework to coursework, right? all of that massive consumption is being, like Morgan, I just quickly read one of her comments, is being pared down. Like we are stripped to just what are the core values. You don't have to be everything to everybody. In fact, if you don't want to be anything, that's okay too. Your core values are always a moving momentum too. Like it's never stagnant. As you evolve, your core values will evolve. So for that day, it's a lot denser to move through and be performative in your everyday actions. And for you, you're captured on camera. Like for me in real life, nobody captures me swearing at a customer. that moment is lost in time. Yours is on YouTube for like the 1,000 viewers that want to go back in and like look at it.
Every time I see one of those TikToks where the manager of the Burger King is throwing food at the customer or yelling at the customer, I think about you.
It's great being a small business owner. I kick people out all the time that I don't like enjoy. I'm like, what? How'd you get in my bubble? Like, get out. So I think it's about quality. We need to analyze its quality over quantity now.
Absolutely. It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And I think too, like this, what you were saying about, you don't have to be this, you don't have to be that. Sometimes you don't have to be anything because you can't even be anything. You just find yourself sitting on the couch. It's probably more difficult for you, but a moment is a moment, not a linear measurement. And you're in that space of just not doing nothing. Right.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that the conversation that people have had about sleep has been huge, and the need to nurture and that's all coming online and all that. But I think the other thing that I can really relate to what you were saying about the what we call dream state. Like I know how extreme I've always been in touch with that side of myself. It's had expansions and contractions or periods where I couldn't remember anything. Okay, might be a better way to put it. But lately, the last few weeks, the amount of energy being exerted in what we call dream state has just been off the hook.
Yeah.
And a big part of what I got from it, it took me a little while because I was kind of having some issues with sleeping and my diet. I couldn't eat things. I can't eat things I used to. I don't eat as much as it's weird, just I'm dealing with all this. But the message that came in was you need to get your ass to bed because you're busting your ass when you're not, when you're not awake, you're in dream state. And that's why you're waking up feeling like a truck ran over you.
Because you're not resting.
Right.
No one's resting in dream state. Like we've all been like fooled. People think that, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to be resting. Like, no, you know what? Everyone's being called to arms. We are not resting in dream state.
No.
The more you sleep, the more restless you are. It's better for you to just zone out on the couch and stare at beige paint. That is more restful because at least in this dimension, interacting with beige paint is not a caustic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And let me ask you or anyone else, okay? And this isn't, I don't have an answer here. I'm just asking, for how long can you hold your attention on anything?
Not much.
Okay. So that's a real game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at everything of like, say, just the last 2 years, especially like with COVID and people being pulled from their jobs, working out of home, that's a totally different type of experience. But, like even if I sit down to watch a movie, I'll give you an example. There's a movie, Don't Look Up. Is that what it's called?
Yes, I saw that movie.
Okay. So I thought, oh, well, finally there's a new movie out there, not that I can ever find one. Right. So I thought, I'm going to watch this movie. Now I get into this movie about 15 minutes and all I can see is what's behind what's being presented. Not in a nefarious conspiracy disclosure way, just in an experience.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing how, obviously, it was very overt how they were showing everybody's more interested in who married who and who's dating who, and the real uplifting, positive bubblegum energy they had on the talk show, right? And I thought, oh, well, this is, this is what this is. Anyway, with all this information coming in, this is what's being presented. This is what intended it. This is this. This is that. I only lasted like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I could not watch the program for a lot of reasons, but I think the main reason is because distraction is not going to have the place in our lives that it used to. And that's all there is to it. And that could be, your favorite pet next to you, your favorite cigarette, drink, drug, whatever, person, whatever. Or it could be, watching a program like that. I mean, we're obviously maybe not able to appreciate, going back to the gratitude, not able to appreciate the solitary time that we have because we don't see it for what it is. And it's, I think, a product, or at a minimum, if there's more than one, a byproduct of the work that we've done and the universal hand, the hand of providence, putting us in a place of nourishment from an energetic standpoint, which is, turn off the noise, get rid of all the distractions to your vision and just be alone. And I think these moments are very powerful, and I don't think they're measured by linear time. I think, I can get totally revitalized to at least a certain degree in 15 or 20 minutes,
Yeah.
And then other days it's 2 days in a row. You're flat on the couch. I haven't shaved in a week or bathed, and then, I'm eating crackers and, I mean, it can be a lot of things, but I think it's a good sign. And a lot of the stuff that we experience, we go, oh, that hurts. Oh, that's bad. Oh, but it's actually, if you look at it, it's some really good stuff. And I think it goes back to what you're saying about being able to look at the past and go, wow, I'm really grateful that I was homeless for 2 years. And now to be in this space now, okay, what did I have back then that I'm missing now because I don't feel the same way now? And I go, okay, I'm grateful for being Todd. I'm grateful for having a fucking roof. I didn't have one 10 years ago, that was a stress I don't have. I'm thankful for Morgan, thankful for, and you just start going down the list, and it's not hokey, woo. It's like programming the human.
No, it's not. I think it's one of those things where it's, you are retraining your brain to find joy in what is already there instead of creating and trying to reach for something, because our modern society is constantly going forward, right? There's no valuation in just basically being present. And it's hard to feel like you're a useful human being if you're just lying on the couch. So it's one of those things where it's just like, well, you know what, honey, this period of COVID, that is the tool that will get you through it. We will, when we get to the other side, when we get there, we're going to look back and say, that was perfect. The chaos, the external chaos was perfect for you to go and womb, because in the womb, everything deafens and falls away.
Yeah.
Only thing that is important is that you feel safe and you're held and you're loved. That's the only thing that's important. And even when we start us and we get to the other side, we're going to realize that too, right? So it's one of those things where it's just like, it's very chaotic. And it's one of those things that, yes, we're going through a huge breakthrough. Humanity will have a huge breakthrough. It's going to look like a shitstorm. Like I really wanted Nicola that was on previous, like, to me, right? I really wanted to share her enthusiasm for I was like, I really wanted, but I'm like, oh, I have such a big mouth. I can't do it. Right. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh God, I wanted to feel just as positive, as enthusiastic as she is. But my gut feeling is like, no, and it's just, no, it's going down, and it's going down hard. So it's more like batten down the hatches, do your soul work, create that womb experience, because you're going to be seeking shelter in it during 2022. There will be masters obviously out there that can harness that energy and create magnificent things for sure. I just feel like I probably won't be one of those. But I will cheer the Nicola farmers out there that will be harnessing that energy and creating like these magnificent things that are going to come out of it, right? For sure, for sure. We need those people.
I don't think I'm there either. So let me ask you something before we get out of here. It's already been an hour and a half. I don't want to keep you. I saw a post earlier today. I think Neil Devaney put it up. I think it was his own words. It was last night, and I shared it and into Soulogy group. You know, I share a lot of stuff in the Soulogy group, and so it sounded like a download that he had spoken to his guides, and his guides said over the next 30 days, there's going to be a timeline jump, but it's going to be a very collective jump. And I don't know. I just read it, and I don't take everything literal. And I was just like, something about the energy of that feels right. And it had some verbiage in there about, okay, some people are kind of aware and they're going, others that aren't even aware are going, and just the way it was explained. And so the reason I'm bringing it up is because it was, to me, like probably the best presentation that I've seen for myself of the event. Of, you know, I'm a believer the event's happening all the time, but still there's going to be these lines of you know, these points of differentiation that are so powerful and obvious, and things are becoming more obvious. So I was like, wow, I wonder if that's because it certainly feels like something's about to really burst or birth. But I was just going to ask you, like, I mean, because I know you get your own intel, and then I know you're also very astute. Like, do you think something like that could actually happen? Do you think that there could be, not for everybody, but just say a noticeable shift in a short period of linear time, and I'm talking like within a month, within a week, whatever, where we're all going, shit, we fucking did it. You know, we made it. Or, you know, we've made the higher ground, or we can prove we're on this higher ground, and maybe the contractions aren't taking us to a level that they used to or something. I don't know exactly what I'm saying, but somebody said they felt the same about Neil's post. So maybe it might have helped if I would have read it. But do you think that, you know, given all this, I guess you could say mixed energy, and then the solitary moments, and then the stuff that's coming up, and everything, do you think that we could actually see something like that?
I think going back to so everyone that's watching this, your reality is going to be defined by how much you focus your energies on things. So the energy that's coming in is amplified, like amplified creation energy for sure. So if your narrative has always been a gentle narrative, no, it's not going to happen for you. You know what I mean? If your narrative is like, I love picking flowers by the sea and collecting seashells, it's not going to happen for you, for sure. If your narrative is dramatic like Todd's, yes, it will happen. Because your narrative is so dramatic. Whether you like it or not, you sign on to that experience.
Mine's dramatic?
Yes, it's very dramatic.
That scares me when you say that. What does that mean?
But you are a willing player, so I don't feel sorry for you. So, and the beauty of it is you like to share your dramatic experiences. Not everyone likes to share it either. So some people just like keep it to themselves, right? So for you and Morgan, you both have dramatic narratives, and you both are public figures in sharing your story, which is wonderful. People need that because it makes them feel less crazy, because they're not the type of person that will be in the camera and sharing their story. But when they hear your story, they're like, oh, great, Todd screwed up and he's still alive. That gives me hope. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's just like, I strongly believe for anyone that wants that pop, you want humanity to break so that all that glorious beauty can flow in like just one catastrophic link. It's going to happen for you. It will happen for you for sure. And I feel like it's coming close. And the reason why I say that is I don't know how I became known as the Dragon Lady. I think it's because just on camera, I broke out as the Dragon Lady, but there's a lot to it. So the dragons showed up right when COVID hit, when I was in Mexico, and I took a picture of it. And the photo of it is very similar to the card that I discovered 3 days ago behind my bed. And when I'm looking back, and it takes me a while to link things because I know I look for signs. I am an intentional sign looker, right? And it brings me peace that I'm kind of moving in an area that there will be some progress. I'm not walking in total shitstorm. But this dragon showed up, that card, and at first I'm like, oh, maybe like I'm trying to be positive, but then I realized I wasn't. I was like, maybe this is the end of the pandemic, because the other dragon that showed up in the skies, very similar. I'll share it after in the comments below, that photo.
Wait, so there was a second one?
So at the very beginning,
I remember that.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, but I took a photo of it. So there's basically in the sky, you'll see an orange gold dragon along the Mexico beach line. So it's against blue. So this card here, very similar, but this is drawn versus a photograph. So when I put them side by side, you'll see how eerily similar it is. And I was like, oh, this might be the signal for the pandemic ending. And I sat with it and I bursted out laughing. Like I was just by myself in the kitchen. I started laughing really hard. And I'm like, who am I kidding? The real ending is starting. That's what it's signaling.
The real ending is starting. Yeah.
Yes. So this lead up is like, this is nothing. This lead up is nothing. It's like the appetizer to the entree. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what Gabriella, I can't pronounce her, like Garbaz. That's what she said, I think Friday. She said, this is the end of the beginning. Like that little time slot you were talking about. Like you were saying at first, oh, this is the end of the COVID. No, it's the end of the beginning of it, right? Kind of thing.
Yes.
And I don't mean COVID specifically, but I just meant the energy of it's, I feel that. But again, like, I still have to remind myself throughout the day, because I think this has happened for a lot of people where we're observing ourselves, we're hearing ourselves, or we're questioning ourselves. Why do you say that? Why do you do that? Why do you feel that? And it's like when I look at things, and I think it's, everybody's on their own journey with what you look at, and I respect them all. I just have my own journey, and I still pop in and look, but I'm doing it constructively and consciously, and like with awareness of what is my charge. But what I have come out of it with is like, where is the good? Like, what am I grateful about with this? There's with everything, because so much of everything we look at is like, if you take, for example, my personal life, my beloveds on the other side of the earth. I could spend time going, God, we're separated. This is painful. Or I could say, I'm in a fucking great relationship. Yeah. And it's a very unique situation.
You're not actually alone, right? You're like,
yeah. So it's alone. Like, but it can be applied to everything.
Yes.
I mean, I look at Biden sometimes and I think to myself, how the hell? I mean, and you start to question the election, and I'm like, no. What a gift this guy is. How could anyone, and I'm not making fun of him, I'm just saying, how could anyone not look at that type of thing and go, wow, things are really kind of skew here. you know what I mean? Among other things. But yeah, so I don't know. They're just trying to be, I guess the way you put it was like to be in gratitude, in the present. And I know we say things, but to actually do it. And I think, like one of the takeaways I got from you, because I haven't really thought about it. I go back and look at the past and go, wow, I'm grateful. But I don't do it as a conscious tool to bring me more gratitude in my present, which I think I'll try to apply to that.
Yeah.
Holy shiitake mushrooms. There's 111 people in the house, so I guess this is the signal.
We gotta go.
It's good seeing you.
We reached our peak.
Yeah, no kidding. It's good seeing you again.
Yes.
Like you're just like one of those things that never goes away. Yeah, ever since you stepped in, I was wondering, what's this lady doing? She's going to buy us a drink here on the south. What do they call that? South side of the island? Pollo Yoka or?
Where were we? Poi Poo. Where are we?
Poi Poo.
Poi Poo. I can't even
22. Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah. But yeah, see, but that, like, and then like seeing you in Washington, when you got out of the car, it was like, you know, like we've done this fucking million times.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, well, like, or why do I trust this person? Like, I don't even question it. I've never
my
questioned.
husband's like, where are you going?
Yeah.
Oh, just some farm in Yelm. He goes, where's Yelm?
Right by the Sasquatch community.
What if they kill you? I'm like, then they kill me. I don't feel like they're going to kill me. I'm like, have you met me?
Right on.
All right.
See you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Love you.
Bye.
Take care. Be back tomorrow. Thanks.